Welcome to this week's Rider Support.
This week we're going to talk about the best wheel choice for your bike. We're going to talk about proper periodization. But first, let's talk about how you structure your training week correctly. Sarah.
Anthony. Okay, let's get straight into the questions this week. Anthony, I only have about 8 hours a week to train, so I'm trying to balance building my endurance with getting in some high intensity work. I've heard about the 80-20 rule, spending 80% of training in zone 2 and 20% at higher intensities, but I'm not sure how to apply it with my limited hours. Should I split my time between how should I split my time between zone 2 and harder efforts to maximize performance without burning out?
The idea of 80-20, it came from Professor Stephen Seiler. And we had Professor Stephen Seiler on the podcast last week, and we actually talked specifically about this. So I think rather than me trying to regurgitate exactly what he told me to this answer, let's have a look at this answer and then we can talk about how we can properly implement that into his training.
Yeah, I'm going to try to use duration and intensity as best I can still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, I want you to front load. I want you to get at least one really long session, or at least relatively, given your 8-hour package, that's your total volume. Then I'm going to say, I'd like you to still be able to do a 3-hour ride. So 3 of your 8, I want you to invest in a long ride so that we use duration for what it's worth, because duration is a powerful signal. Duration, we often focus on intensity, but the difference between a 1-hour ride and a 2-hour ride and a 3-hour ride, a lot happens in that third hour. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell this person, okay, all right, with 8 hours, how many times a week are you training? We're going to figure that out. Let's say it's 4. Then I'm going to say, I want you to do one of those is going to be a 3-hour session, and then another is a 2, and then you're going to have a couple of 1-hour sessions that are high intensity, and now we're at 7 hours. So we're going to think about how do we use that 8-hour budget, and it may end up being that we have fewer training days, but we stretch one of them. Make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
I think athletes are scared to do that, and what they end up doing is training every day for an hour or an hour and a half, pretty hard, and that's the way they think is the best way to use that 8-hour budget, and I don't think that's correct.
That was an amazing interview. It's just knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb with him. But can I just do a shout out for his voice and his amazing
Southern
accent?
drawl.
It's just gorgeous to listen to.
So, okay, let's unpack that a little bit. So he talks about, this clip goes on to, or part 1 of that interview actually sets this up nicely. He talks about we have 3 levers that we can pull. We have frequency, we have intensity, and we have duration. So it's how often we train, how long we train, how hard we train. But what I took from this clip is each of those levers aren't perfectly equal. We shouldn't put as much weight on some as others, especially if we're stuck in a constraint like this, like a limited amount of time, which most of us find ourselves in, whether it's 8, 10, 12. It's normally fixed in some sort of temporal container. So he's saying maybe we need to sacrifice one of these levers, frequency, and not train as often. And that's quite scary for a lot of people, because a lot of us are conditioned to taking Monday off, Friday easy, and trying to ride Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Because we confuse, I'd give the analogy of my dad does this. He'd be in traffic and Google Maps will say it's 25 minutes to your destination. But instead of trusting Google Maps to the 25 minutes and that's the fastest way home, he'll take all these back lanes because he just wants movement. He wants momentum and he'll get there later. That's what a lot of us want to do with our training. We want momentum. We want to feel like we're taking it forward every day of the week. But as Sailor says, there's a better way to distribute your training time across the week.
That is a point. That is a good point, isn't it? You come home and you train, or you get into a routine and you train, as you said, 5 days a week. And if you don't do that, if you're not training 5 days a week, if you're not seeing on your training peaks or your, whatever you track your training in, even if you just write it down, you're not seeing all that green, or you're not seeing all that, those entries going in, which is quite satisfying and kind of makes you feel that you are moving forward. There's a total mindset change that has to happen there.
Yeah, but it makes sense in the context of that, as he calls it, I think the magic happens. There's it's not a linear relationship between hour 1, hour 2, hour 3. It's compounding, it's exponential. So you start to experience different sort of growth in hour 2, in hour 3, in hour 4. So the more we can tap in and allow that magic to happen, the better it's going to be. A huge takeaway from that as well is no rest days. That was later on in the interview. Rest days have never been backed up in the data to be beneficial. If you need a rest day, you take the day off. And that's really good news for someone who's time crunched. So now we can set up the week exactly like he's advocating. If you have 8 hours where you have one longer 3-hour ride on a Saturday, you have a 2-hour ride some other day, and then you have a bunch of 1-hour rides rather than having, 100 minutes or spread all across the week.
So take a total day off rather than...
Take multiple days off.
Take multiple days off.
Yeah, like if you're going to go for that, like a 3, a 2, you're up to 5, and then you're another 1.5 and another 1.5. You're only training 4 days a week.
Yeah. It is a really efficient way to train, isn't it? It makes a lot of sense.
And then you can get your intense sessions done on the shorter sessions. So it's win-win all around.
So that's what you advocate that this listener...
I think it's worth trying, especially if people are stuck at plateaus where they've been for a lot of years doing the same stuff and not really getting ahead. It's worth trying it, especially when it's coming from someone as esteemed as Stephen Siler.
Yeah, he's so knowledgeable. I'm going to link the full interview in the show notes as well. That has been such a success across YouTube and our podcast platforms. People really are quite confused as to, this is good information. And if you've got a coach who's dealing with Roglic, Pogacar, the guys who literally have 25, 35 hours to train per week. But how can I apply this as somebody who has all those other demands, a career, a family, they want to have a social life? And Stephen actually does give pointers to do that, really actionable thing. So as I said, I'll link that in the show notes. Okay, question number 2. I've been working with my coach for a while, and I get that training is supposed to be tough, but lately it feels like I'm always exhausted. I'm dragging through work, skipping social stuff, and if I'm honest, my love life is taking a hit because I'm just too wiped out. Read between the lines there, if you like.
I hope it's not you writing this question in, is it?
Is my love life on the... is it on the rocks, Anthony? I don't know. I didn't think so. My coach keeps piling on more intensity, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm headed for burnout. How do I bring this up without sounding like I'm slacking? And how do you even know if it's time to back off?
It sounds like he's past the point of thinking burnout could be on the horizon. I think he's in the eye of the storm. Like some of the symptoms of burnout are persistent fatigue even after resting.
Lack of libido.
Yeah, you could add that one in. I didn't have that on my list, but go for it. Decreased performance in workouts. I'm not talking about bedroom workouts. Lack of motivation and enthusiasm for training. Mood changes like irritability, depression, and physical symptoms like increased incidence of injury, disturbed sleep, changes in appetite, and maybe even throw saddle sores into the mix on that one. He's well and truly there.
What I want to know though, sorry for butting in, Adam, why are you writing into a podcast? You're paying your coach and they should be answering these questions for you. I'm just kind of thinking maybe overtraining has affected his confidence as well because he doesn't feel like he has the guts.
No, but he also has it there, like that he doesn't want to feel like he's wussing out. So he does answer that question.
True.
He doesn't want to lose face with the coach. And I can get that as well because I've been that soldier who your 10 intervals are prescribed and you're 7 deep and you know it's the wrong thing to do because you're absolutely digging into a hole. But you also don't want to lose face because you've built this image of you're someone who complies or someone who digs deep. So yeah, it's a tough balance to get. So I can definitely get that. But I think I would start by being open and honest with your coach about how you're feeling. Explain that you're experiencing these symptoms like persistent exhaustion, poor love life, and that your daily well-being is taking a little bit of a hit. And if he's not willing to listen to this stuff, I think that's a problem with the relationship between you and your coach. I would also lean on secondary data sources. So I would look primarily for how you're feeling. I think that's the most important one. Then secondarily, you're looking at training peaks to see what performances are like. And you're trying to back that up and get corroboration of that if you can with data from your Whoop, like heart rate variability, sleep, are you in an unusually stressful time and work, that type of stuff. And having that kind of trifecta picture to paint a more complete textured image rather than just relying on one of those alone.
I actually kind of liked what you said there about, owning your own, you could be pushing yourself a little bit too hard during your sessions, or almost have this attitude of, well, man up, I should be able to do this. Because a good coach will look at the numbers and will look at your training stress score, but they're also expecting a kind of communication back as well, an honest communication back about how you're feeling and how you're coping, and obviously all those symptoms.
Because honestly, the numbers don't tell you that much. Like, as a coach looking at that stuff in a vacuum, it's kind of hard to know. Like, you hit this power last week at this heart rate, and now you're hitting on the same session the same power, but your heart rate's lower. It's like you can make certain inferences on that, but it's a very incomplete picture unless you're talking to the athlete and the athlete's giving you this feedback. Also, you've other stuff that sort of gives you noisier data, like power meters are not notoriously accurate. Its strain gauges are built into the power meters. They fluctuate based on temperature. Heart rate, again, not notoriously accurate. It's affected by stress, sleep, caffeine. So when you're making inferences from that, sometimes you're making decisions based off bad data. So you need to marry that with the client's subjective feedback on how they're feeling.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Adam, I think text your coach tonight, tell him that you can no longer get it up and you need to change your training strategy. Okay, next question. I've heard a lot in the past about train low, race high when it comes to carb intake, but I'm not sure how to actually implement it. Is there a right way to use low carb training without completely wrecking my energy levels? How often should I do these sessions, and what's the best way to make sure it doesn't mess with my performance on hard days? And that's from Andy.
I don't think you should do them at all. I think you're starting to play with something that's very, very complicated, and it's that saying of, like, don't start majoring in the minor things. People start talking about using ketones on fasted rides, and you're like, do the stuff first, the foundational stuff, and then if you want to play around with really advanced strategies to try and eke out an extra 0.1 performance, do so. But also know there's a cost and benefit analysis to that. Like, the idea, it typically involves training with lower glycogen stores. It's like training before breakfast or something to enhance fat oxidation. I'll try that one again. Fat oxidation and metabolic efficiency. Then racing or doing your higher intensity workouts later in the week, you hit full glycogen stores by fueling properly. However, that method's quite challenging because it's going to really affect your energy levels and your training quality. So if you think about going into a training session suboptimally fueled, you're not performing as you could during the session. So then the adaptations you could get from that session aren't as great. So you're looking to trade off one adaptation against another. You're looking to improve your metabolic flexibility and using different substrates as a fuel source. But the downside of that is you're not getting the full adaptation from the session. I don't think that's an equal trade. I think you're much better off having the full adaptation from the session rather than trying to work on metabolic flexibility, unless you're a World Tour rider doing this under the guidance of a World Tour coach who really knows how to optimize this stuff. Because, sorry, I won't, last point on this, carbs and glycogen stores, they also really affect our recovery. Like, carbs aren't just about fueling your workout, they're also about recovering from your workout so you can lay a foundation for the next day. Yeah. So carbs post-training, that helps replenish muscle glycogen stores. It facilitates faster recovery and preparation for that subsequent session, like we said. So I would say don't play with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually thought that the train low, race high ethos was almost an old school way of thinking. And now that we have better understanding about fueling and the fact that we do need to actually feel exactly what you said, feed our bodies in order to fuel sessions and fuel recovery, that's kind of the new way even the World Tour riders are doing at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. And I'd love to get, Sam Impey, David Dunn, the guys who are leading nutrition in the World Tour space onto the podcast to talk about this. But chatting with Yuri Carlson, who is, again, a brilliant nutritionist in the last couple of weeks, yeah, you can use that, what did you call it, train high, race low. Like, I think that term is dead. But what's not really dead is this idea of, like, macro loading different amounts on different days. Yeah. You're naturally going to be taking on a lot more carbohydrates because you have a higher fueling demand on hard days, on long days, than you are on recovery days. So if you want to call that train high, race low, or the inverse of that,
way, yes.
like you could maybe. Yeah. Because it is a softer version of that. I think naturally, if you're fueling correctly, you're going to be taking on less carbohydrates on your easier days.
Well, on my easier rides, even I don't eat as many carbs per hour than
But
I
not
would on a
none.
high intensity. Exactly.
Yeah.
That was my point. I don't completely skimp on carbs or not eat on my rides. So it is very interesting. And I think if you do want to play around with it, it's definitely worth looking into getting a professional on your side, because as you said, it's super, super complicated.
Roadman, are you ready for the world's greatest cycling show? Rouleur Live is back and it is bigger than ever. It's taking place in the iconic Truman Brewery in London from November 14th to November 16th. Rouleur Live brings cycling culture to life like never before, with over 80 of top cycling brands in the world and a star-studded lineup. It's the ultimate event for cycling fans, cyclists, and anyone who just lives and breathes life on two wheels. The guest lineup, it's insane. Cycling royalty like Tom Pidcock, Kassianu Madoma, Luke Rowe, Lachlan Morton, and even the legend, Mr. Greg LeMond. They'll be live on stage, sharing stories, insights, and giving you a little bit of inspiration. This is Rouleur magazine brought to life. It's an epic celebration of the people, the products, and the passions that define the sport. But folks, tickets are going very fast. Opening day has already sold out. There's limited tickets left for the Friday and Saturday. And if you're looking for an extra special experience, consider upgrading to a VIP pass to get exclusive access to the private lounge, which has artisan food and drink, guaranteed stage seating, and meet and greet with the star-studded speakers. Now here's an amazing deal for our Roadman listeners. You're going to get 10% off your ticket purchase price when you use the exclusive code ROADMAN10 when you're checking out. That's ROADMAN10. Head over to rouleur.cc/live for all the details and to book your ticket now. Don't miss out on the cycling event of the year. I'll be there, so make sure you come and say hello.
Okay, next question. One of the lads on the spin has an electric tyre pressure gauge and swears by it. Now, I know that track pumps and hand pumps aren't totally accurate. They can be plus or minus 5 psi, but surely that won't make that much of a difference, or am I missing a trick here?
I'm going to answer that question, but I also want to tell you a story. Because this happened to me today, and I haven't even told you yet. I was out training today with one of my training partners, the Roadman lads, Johannes, and we came across a guy on the hill who was punctured. Didn't know what he was doing, bless his heart. So we stopped and we're like, are you okay? And he's like, I have this canister. And it was like a Zephyl tubeless sealant and CO2 all in one canister. He's like, I'm trying to fix it with this, but it's not working. He wasn't on tubeless tires. He was on clincher tires. These only work with tubeless. And we're like, did you put a new tube in? He's like, no, I didn't put a new tube in. So we kind of had a look at each other, going like, how are you for time? Yeah, I'm good. We'll change it for him. So we changed it for him. Actually, like a Formula One pit stop, because both of us were at it, like CO2 can, two of us pulling tire levers off. It was fast. Like we got it done
together.
3-4 minutes. But as we were getting ready to go off and we were putting this wheel back on, he's like, what'll I do with this tube? And I said, put it in your pocket. And he looked around, he's like, sure, no one's looking. And he threw it into the field.
He didn't.
And then the Zephyl can, he said, what'll I do with this? Johanna said, put it in your pocket. And he threw it into the field.
He didn't.
And we're
I
just
actually
like,
feel sick.
Bring your tubes home with you.
Did you say it to him?
No, he was like 70-year-old man.
Don't care.
It's like, but
don't care. So something similar happened to me.
all the way up the hill after it.
Something similar kind of happened to me in the Phoenix Park, our most beautiful park in Dublin. I was riding my bike through it out on kind of the little trails, and there was a couple of people running, and one of the girls took a gel and just chucked it. And I was like, put that in your pocket. And in fairness, the rest of her group kind of turned on her and were like, yeah, no, she's right. You need to put that in your pocket. But the absolute audacity of people to just chuck their rubbish.
Yeah, I had a lad last year in Rossmoon that took a gel wrapper out, and I said to him, like, put that, he threw it, and I was like, put it back in your pocket. He's like, my hands are too cold. I was like, how did you get it out of your pocket? Idiots.
That really grinds my gears so much. Anyway, let's answer this question. Electric, we got sidetracked. Electric tire pressure gauge. Anthony, do you think that it's worth it? Those tiny gains or, differences plus or minus by about 4 or 5 that you get from your track pump?
Okay, I don't know the underlying theory in this is that the electric pump is totally accurate. I don't know if that's true, but Is
Well,
it true?
no, the
Maybe someone in
tire
the comments
pressure
let me know.
gauge. No, he bought it. His friend has an electric tire pressure
Tire
gauge.
pressure gauge. Sorry, I thought it was like one of those electric pumps.
No,
the
the
ones you put
gauge.
in.
So, and his friend is obviously testing the gauge and making
Yeah,
sure that it's like very
I
specific.
like them gauges. I need one of them. I'd be down with them. It does
That's-
make a difference. Like correct tire pressure can affect rolling resistance. It can affect comfort. It can affect traction. That's going to improve the quality of your ride and potentially get you home without crashing. I am, as everyone will have heard me on the podcast mentioned 25,000 times, broke my ribs about 8 weeks and 4 days ago.
You
Who's
broke your
counting?
ribs.
But I largely put that down to tire pressure. I punctured on the run on the mountain bike just before that. 4 people looking at me changing the puncture, 3 of them that I didn't know super well. And I'm like, oh, I'm holding everything up. Changed the puncture, went from tubeless to putting a tube in, blew it up with a CO2 can, had way too much pressure in it. Next corner, literally slid out.
But I totally get it for gravel. I totally get it for mountain biking. But is that tiny little inaccuracies with your foot pump, your track pump or your hand pump, are they really going to make a huge difference on the road?
Like for casual riding, I think a few PSI over, a few PSI under mightn't be noticeable, mightn't be the end of the world. If you're going railing a load of corners in Mallorca, I think it is important for competitive cycling. Like if you're going racing or if you're even doing a super hard group ride, I think small variations can make a difference. Also on that, you need to be pumping your tires at the ambient pressure. If you're pumping your tires in the house and then you're going riding in a temperature that's like 20 degrees cooler, that's going to have an effect on your tire pressure as well.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, which could be as much, if not more, than the variation he's talking about here.
Yeah. So tire pressure gauge, you think it's a good idea, even
Big
for
winner,
roadies?
Big fan for my Christmas present.
I was going to say a stocking filler for Anthony.
We'll be doing the Christmas gift guide soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Roadmen, I'm going to date myself here, but I've been riding the bike for almost 20 years. And in that time, I've cycled through every cycling apparel brand out there. And I kept swapping out different apparel brands each season until I found Lacoste. There's something really different about Lacoste, and as soon as you slip into the gear, you notice it feels different, it feels better. I've had the pleasure of chatting with Yanto Barker on the podcast. He's the Lacoste founder, and his dedication to crafting the fastest, most refined cycling apparel out there, it's nothing short of inspiring. Yanto isn't just trying to create gear. I get the feeling he's actively and obsessively trying to perfect cycling gear. Trust me, as soon as you slip on the Lacoste kit, as soon as you zip up that jersey, you can feel that commitment. The proof for Lacoste, it's in the pudding. This is the same kit that Jay Hindley wore when he clinched overall victory in the Giro d'Italia. There's a confidence that comes with wearing apparel that's been battle tested and podium proven in races like the Giro d'Italia. Trust me, feeling good on the bike means you're gonna perform better. If you have a second, I highly advise you to jump on over to lacoste.cc and check out their amazing range of kit and experience this feeling for yourself.
Okay, next question. Sarah, I know you love etiquette questions, so here's one I've been wondering about. I love seeing new riders get into the sport, but I've noticed some interesting fashion choices out there, like the guy who showed up in gym shorts over his bib shorts. Anthony, you have done that in the past. Or the one where his sunglasses are under his helmet straps. Oh my God, I'm clutching my pearls here at these cycling faux pas that shouldn't really be important. Am I just being old school, or is there a point where someone should step in and offer a friendly style tip? What's the etiquette and giving newbies a little fashion guidance?
I kind of feel this is like the guy talking about trying to play around with metabolic efficiency gains versus just focusing on like what actually matters and training hard and sleeping well. Like some stuff should really matter, and the traditions of cycling are important and should be respected, and some traditions are really worth preserving, but others are just kind of a bit goofy and sometimes maybe act as an exclusionary barrier into the sport. I think if someone wants to show up and wear jean shorts, amazing, let him go and show up and wear jean shorts.
You probably won't do it the second time.
Well,
He'll
he
learn
might
the
Taylor
hard
Finney
way.
rode Badlands in a pair of jean shorts and sandals.
He's got a pretty hardcore undercarriage, though, I'd say, after many years on the bike.
Like the stuff that matters isn't how someone dresses. It's very, very far down the list. Like, can someone be, we chatted last week at length about the group ride. Can you slot in and be an effective part of the group ride? Can you go around a corner without losing your line? Can you stand without pushing your bike back? Can you eat on the bike? Can you put your rain cape on the move without riders around you? Can you descend confidently? these are the main skills. And yeah, there's definitely value in dressing well. It's functional. Like you said, you get less abrasion, or you're going to be able to ride longer because you're riding comfortable. But don't get stuck thinking that's the most important thing. All that other stuff is much, much more important. And then the dressing right will come. Like, make people in the group feel welcome. Teach them the important stuff first, and then that stuff can come. They'll figure that out.
Yeah, so I have to say I totally disagree with you, Anthony, as somebody who came to the sport late and went in, rocked up and didn't know anything, never looked cool, was doing everything wrong and stuck out like a sore thumb. And I had you guiding me and, you know, saying to me quite openly, because, you know, we're in a relationship, telling me the do's and don'ts of what to do and how to kind of look a little bit cooler, what to wear, what not to wear. And I appreciated that. And I think that newbies don't want to be going to a group and doing things wrong, even if it is those really stupid things like the glasses on the inside or the outside of the helmet strap. You know,
that's just stupid.
You know, I get it,
like,
but it's just kind of, it's just one of those tiny little things that will make you stand out as a newbie or somebody who's not really in the group. And personally, it's kind of like if you take up running, you go to a running group, you don't want to be the one that looks like a newbie. You don't want to be the one that's jogging at the you know, when the light is red for you. You want to fit in. So, and I think that that's important with this podcast as well, that we don't kind of say, oh, don't worry about that, you'll be fine, you'll pick it all up eventually. I think as somebody who's new to cycling, I like to hear those little tips and tricks.
I will agree with you. I will agree with you. But the problem is that cycling's expensive.
Yes.
And we're not trying to erect more barriers to participating in it. So it becomes this white middle-aged dude sport. Anyone can ride a bike, any size, any race, anyone can jump in on their local group ride, because the currency, it's not how you dress. You can go to school wearing the goofiest uniform. If you're the best in the class at math, you're the best in the class at math. That's the currency that matters. It's the same in cycling. The currency that matters is talent, it's skill, it's fitness level. They're the currencies that matter, not can you dress like everyone else. Yeah, but a lot of
people aren't coming into cycling in a group or into cycling to go and win races, to be at the front of a big long sportif. They're coming in to find community, like-minded people, and to fit in where they may have never had a group to fit in with before. So I think these like really tiny little details, I think the person who wrote into this, I think there are ways of saying these things to people. You don't have to be totally abrupt and mean. Just kind of teach them and say, oh, well, look at Anthony. Anthony wears his bibs or his leg warmers in such a way.
Then we'll say, like, if you are spending, like, there's cooler stuff to spend on. Yeah. Like, you cannot look like an idiot. But I don't know. I don't like the idea of erecting the barrier that you have to spend to be part of this group.
Yeah, I don't think it's about spending. It's just like, as I said, the glasses under the helmet straps is a good example. He already has the glasses, but he's wearing them kind of wrong. So point it out. Just say it to him. It's fine.
As long, if he's dropping it, like, you need to be shutting up. No one wants to get advice from someone that's getting dropped.
We are so excited to announce that we are partnering with Whoop. Whoop are changing the game when it comes to wearable technology and health monitoring. Whoop is a wearable health and fitness coach that provides you with feedback and actionable insights into your sleep, your recovery, your training, your stress, and your overall health. Sarah and I have been using Whoop for years, and we love the insights it provides into our body's inner workings. It really gives us a look under the hood. And you're going to see Mathieu van der Poel, Richard Carapaz, and other elite level cyclists wearing Whoop. But it isn't just for those superstars. All the data is personalized to your unique physiology and fitness levels. If you're interested in taking control of your health and your fitness so that you can excel in all aspects of your life, you have to go and check out Whoop. Go to the URL now, which is join.whoop.com/roadman. I'm going to pop that in the description below, and you're going to get a free month's access to Whoop membership on me. I promise you won't regret it.
Just before we move on to the next question, I wanted to mention something really frightening that happened to one of the, I'm going to call her a road man. She comes out on the ride very frequently and really kind of sticks in with the lads. She's very much girl power, and she's one of the strongest girls I've ever ridden with. She's very, proficient. She was out riding with a friend and a white van rode up beside her at speed and smacked her across the ass. And she said that it was so hard, the smack was so hard that she felt like she had been hit by a car or something. And she turned around, looked into the car, and these two guys were just laughing at her. And she was so close to the van that hit her, that drove by her, that as she turned around, her glasses actually that were in her helmet hit against the van. She took a massive wobble, and because she's an experienced rider, she managed to lean onto the van, stayed like that for a couple of seconds, got another wobble, turned into her friend who was riding on her left, and they both managed to keep the bike up. Thank God, because if they didn't, one or both of them would have gone under the van and potentially could have had life-threatening, life-changing, or maybe have died in that accident. And that's just one instance that we're hearing. I've actually heard of women being smacked on the ass before as they're out riding by cars that are going by, and only for, I believe, that these two riders were really proficient riders, that they managed to keep their bikes up. This could have been so much worse. It's frightening.
The shit that happens to
it's
people
frightening.
on bike. It just shows you how exposed you are.
Yeah, it really is. I just wanted to highlight that, and just as a very, very scary thing too. So yeah, let's all just kind of say thank you to the cycling gods for keeping those two women safe. Okay, next question. I'm pretty new to cycling, but totally hooked and thinking about upgrading my wheels. I've a really nice Trek, but just have the bog standard wheels that came with it. I keep hearing about deep section rims, carbon versus alloy, and all these different options. What should a beginner look for in wheels? Do the fancy ones actually make a difference, or are they just for the pros?
No, definitely not just for the pros. I'd even caution to say that he has bog standard wheels at the moment. It might be worth doing a bit of research, see what wheels he does have, because a lot of the bikes are coming with pretty good wheels these days. Carbon wheels are lighter, they're stiffer, they're going to provide better performance in terms of speed in a straight line or acceleration. It's going to be easier to get them going. They're brilliant for racing. They climb a little bit better because they're light. I remember getting my first set of carbon wheels. Shout out to Reynolds. They were Reynolds DV ultra light wheels. I absolutely bust all my savings and probably a bank loan to get them. They're like €1,200, crazy expensive. But I noticed a huge difference on them.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy money.
I noticed a huge difference going from alloy rims to them, and I still do. I don't ride alloy rims, truth be told, at all really anymore.
You can literally feel it in the rolling resistance and how quickly the bike goes, or the handling or cornering, or what is it?
Well, if you think about because the rim is typically a bit deeper, so without getting too nerdy then, at different yaw angles, which is the direction the wind's coming in at, that extra depth of the rim is going to act similar to a sail. It does, and it's going to propel you forward, so it gives you a little bit more free speed. Alloy rims are generally more durable, they're generally more affordable, and they're a good like workhorse wheel. Like you could use them up to not too long ago. A lot of World Tour teams were using like an Open Pro rim on a really cool hub for the classics. And because it wasn't thought that you could ride Roubaix on something that was made of carbon, I thought it'd just break to pieces. Like I'm really eager. I have a set of Chris King hubs that are really nice, and I'm really eager to get them built up for you because they're rim brake. My bike's not rim brake anymore. To get them built up with an Open Pro rim, because that would have been a wheel that someone would have used for a Roubaix only 10 years ago. So there's still, I wouldn't totally discount alloy wheels. I think they still have a place.
On that point, this listener would you recommend that he uses his standard wheels that he has at the moment, which potentially are alloy, for winter and wait until summer?
That's not as big a thing as it used to be. I still like that idea. I don't do it personally, but you would have never trained on your race wheels a few years ago. What kind of changed that is disc brakes, because you don't have the wear from the rims anymore. So that's kind of changed, and you're not seeing the same.
It was kind of a more mental... It'd be more of a mental kind of, boost, putting new wheels on for race day, I think, No.
I think typically carbon wheels are a little bit lighter as well, which if someone is trying to climb, that matters. I don't know how you'd have to get a little bit geeky on it. I'm not sure, like if a static, I always thought a rotating weight was more of a penalty than a static weight. Like if you had a wheel that was 1.5 kilograms you'd be better off having a 500 gram saving there than having a 500 gram saving on your weight of your saddle and seat post combo.
Wow, okay.
Because it's moving every single time around. The same theory for pedals and wheels. But I think the best thing to do is actually just get a lend of a set of carbon rims off one of your friends and ride them, because there's a few drawbacks. If you're a really light rider, having the deeper rim is going to catch crosswinds and it feels pretty unstable. One of the girls who doesn't come out so often because she lives abroad had carbon rims and had to get rid of them, just couldn't handle them. Now she's super light, sub 50 kilograms.
Yeah.
So
that is something to keep in mind, isn't it? Because can be a little bit tough to handle. We obviously live coastal, so we're subject to a lot of wind, but it is something like this person's new to cycling as well, so it can be can be a handling issue on those high wind days. We definitely see it in our group, right? A couple of people have those very deep dish carbon,
especially if you're on time trial bike, like you're on the disc and the deep section front wheel. It can be problematic and ends up like a sail. But I think that's we've come to the end of another week, Sarah. Roadman, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Rider Support. If you want to check out another episode, I'm going to leave one up here, which I know you'll love. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests can get. See you soon.